Mic check. It's Oztank time. So excited. See, volume a little high. Mic check, mic check. Let's go, that's right. This is my favorite day of the month, is Oztank time. I am super excited. Super excited to have you all back for the monthly installment of the Oztank, which this time took quite some time. It really took quite some time to come to pass because one, we had FanFest, of course, and then I had COVID, and then the investors didn't have time, and so now six weeks later we actually have an Oztank episode again. So today we actually have a fantastic show because we have everyone with a presentation. That's a first. We made a new rule that you had to bring a presentation, just because last time, compared to the first episode, the second episode just ended up a little bit chaotic, I think, and a little bit hard to follow. So today, all of the candidates have brought at least some sort of visual aid, and we have some really, really cool ideas. As usual, I have not looked at all of them in detail. I skimmed through them. I had some help from the mods, and together we selected 5 really great ideas that we're going to be talking about today. So before I pull the investors in here, let me, for everyone that is that is watching this show for the first time today, the Oztank, what we are doing here is we basically got together with 3 or 4 trillionaires in EVE Online, and we said we typically play to see our numbers go up, and the community kept asking, hey, when are you going to give back to the community? When are you going to inject that money back into the economy? So that's what we're doing here. We're listening to ideas in the style of the Shark Tank or the Dragon's Den, and together with the other investors, we decide who gets funded and who doesn't. There's one big difference between the real life Oztank and what we're doing here, in that this does not need to these ideas do not need to provide a return on investment. They simply just need to be good for EVE Online, and that can be either creating content for the community, providing a service in the economy or in the ecosystem, or basically just provide entertainment, be funny, something positive in the EVE world. And we will give you money. And spoiler alert, we tend to almost fund everything, especially when we have Crota on board. So let me get the other investors in here. Today we have Crota and we have Golden CEO. Who we don't have today is Eden Trade, who's usually with us and who's still, his name is still up there. Here, I'm gonna fix this live on stream here. We're gonna take him out. We moved this to Friday instead of Saturday. So for him, unfortunately, that meant that he didn't have time today. But we do have Crota and Golden CEO. So let me start with Crota. Crota is somebody who writes a blog that is called Markets for ISK. If you Google Markets for ISK, you can easily find it. He has taken a station trading account from 0 to, I think, 1 trillion twice, is what he said. And he tends to give every idea, no matter how bad it is, 10 billion. So Crota, welcome to the show. While Crota sorts out a system, Golden CEO is somebody who said when the TTT was destroyed, he's going to start putting down citadels and have them destroyed with 0% tax until the TTC takes the TTT down. So Golden CEO, welcome to the show. Oh, wait, we don't have sound from them. Okay, we have no audio. Let me see. Working. All right. All right.
Brilliant.
Hey, there we go.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Let me this is episode 3. So let me start over and say welcome to Crota and Golden. You guys didn't miss anything because they basically just said hi. Together, we are going to listen to the community ideas today, 5 of them, and we're going to be deciding whether to fund them. And they're going to present their idea. They're going to ask for funds. We're going to then ask questions, and we're going to discuss it, and we're going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes on each idea, and then we'll decide together or individually who gets money and who doesn't. So let's get our first candidate in here, and our first candidate of the day is somebody called Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect. We can hear you. Chat, can you hear Cloak and Dagger? Perfect. Okay, we're going to be going over to the screen share because you brought a presentation like all of you did, which is quite amazing. Your idea, Cloak and Dagger, is called Eve Kickstart. So walk us through it. What is Eve Kickstart?
So Eve Kickstart is going to be a lease-to-own service for high-sec structures. The presentation today, I'm going to introduce myself. We're going to cover a little bit about what's going on in high-sec and how wars in high-sec work, and resultingly how structures end up dying. Then we're going to get to the pitch, if that sounds good.
Perfect. Let's go.
All right, and you guys can feel free to jump in at any time, but I'm going to introduce myself. I am Cloak and Dagger, usually referred to as Cloak on comms by people who need to yell at me. Made the account when I was the ripe age of 15, so I picked the edgiest name I could, but we just go by Cloak these days. I've been playing the game actively since 2019. Mix of high sec, low sec, and null sec PvP, mostly preferring null, but we do a lot of high sec wars. Account value at 256.8 bill and assets at 129. In terms of PvP, I like taking a lot of bad fights, and I like taking them in shiny Lokis, so I've lost a little more than I'd like, and I'm a little more snuggly than I'd like, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it is. And as for the Alliance, I've been in EM for almost 3 years. We are mainly a high-sec and low-sec Minmatar Alliance. Will have been in for 3 years since, or on the 12th coming up here. In that time, we've had 68 wars, and that's been a large part of our content in this period.
And
so what's going on in high-sec right now?
That's Electus Matari for those that EM is Electus Matari for those that can't read the screen or that will listen in the future of the podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So what's going on in high-sec, and why is this service needed? So in the past 3 months, 600 medium structures have been blown up. Total losses there accounting for 1.67 trillion. And in this past week, 35 medium structures have been killed for almost 100 bill. These numbers are from last night, so this may have increased today. There's a couple of parties that you might run into in high-sec who you may become victim of a war deck too. The first one's going to be the quantum core enjoyers. These are people who they'll go out, they'll look for structures that look like they're not really going to be defended, or they're not going to be very difficult to attack. They'll blow the structure up, and they'll scoop the core for a few $100 million extra profit. These guys aren't really looking for a fight, and they're not looking to lose money fighting, since fundamentally this is like a money-making scheme. You also have your gate traffic enjoyers. These are people who will throw out a bunch of war decks. Usually they'll look at something like Jita traffic, for example. They'll war deck all the war eligible corps that come through, and then they'll sit on the undock or they'll sit on the Jita gate, and they'll kill people as they come through and scoop loot. Mainly they're interested in camping gates for war targets. They're usually happy for a fight, but they also bring a substantial advantage. And they're not typically super interested in structure bashing, but they're out there. And then finally, the people killing structures with the most passion are going to be your mercs and unaffiliated parties. The goal in this case is usually they've been hired to burn down a specific structure, or whoever owned the structure has made them mad and they want to blow it up. Usually they're willing to take a fight even at a disadvantage, and they're not motivated by ISK costs incurred by fighting. So usually in the case of a merc, if you get paid like $1 billion ISK or whatever to blow somebody's structures up, you have a bit of a cushion there in terms of your losses, so you don't really care too much. We're going to take a look at a few of these structures that have been blown up lately. Here's our Raitarus. The first one you can see is unfit completely, aside from some manufacturing rigs, and nobody showed up to defend it, and the owner just lost 5 bill without any trouble for the attacker. Next one was killed by 5 people. This actually has the second most modules fitted of any of the structures that we're going to see here. But it's not fit terribly well. There's some pretty serious problems. The mids on it, for example, it's got a tackle mod and a web. Those aren't really useful because the structure is not going to kill anything in the time that it can tackle something. But that didn't really matter because no one defended and the owner lost almost 4 bill. Final one was killed by 20 people. It was unfit, but it was defended by 4 guys in T1 apocalypses, which did not go super well from them. This was killed by mercs. They ended up losing 9.3 bill. Sort of the same deal with Athenors, a lot of unfit structures. Instead of 4 Navy apocalypses, or sorry, 4 T1 apocalypses defending this final structure here in line, was the owner and a stealth bomber, who was also unsuccessful. And finally, Astor Houses, which are on paper, some of the best, or the best medium structures in terms of difficulty to kill them. First one was killed by 3 people. It's also not fit very well. It's got a bunch of empty slots on it, and the slots that it does have aren't great. No one showed up to defend it. Our middle one was killed by 1 guy in a Hecate. I don't know how long it took him to sit there and just chew through the shields with antimatter, but he managed to do it, so credit to him. It's actually fit well, but no one showed up, so 1 Hecate killed it. And the last one just died to 16 people. Again, no one showed up to defend it. Owner lost 2.3 bill. Just how I picked these out, picked recent ones, and I tried to find examples of structures where somebody showed up at least to try and fight. But with Astor Houses, that didn't really happen. What we can draw from this is that the majority of structures that are dying without good or even any fittings, and they're dying without contest or with the token defensive effort. I wouldn't say a stealth bomber is necessarily a fully kitted defense fleet. Obviously, there's going to be some bias here. If people know how to defend their structures aren't going to be dying, so they're not showing up here. If your structure is fit well, you're probably not going to get targeted by people just looking for cores. So how do we mitigate? If you are a structure owner, how are you mitigating risk to your structure? So one, fit it properly so that if somebody's scanning it just as they're passing by, they look at it and say, well, that may not be the easiest structure to destroy by myself. Obviously, having people show up to defend the structure helps. And then your blanket tips, like don't attempt to open a market next door to an I choose you structure, for example. For most people, Golden CEO excluded, is going to be advice you might want to follow. Don't anchor your structure on a gate for everyone to see. It just makes discovering you easier and getting targeted easier. Don't free port for no reason, so you're not showing up on overviews. And then to avoid Wardex from hub traffic, use a holding corp. A little bit about high-sec war mechanics, then we're going to get into the pitch. So when someone declares a war in high-sec, they have to declare a structure in high-sec that they've anchored as a war headquarters, and they pay a fee of 100 million S to Concord. After a 24-hour warm-up period, 7 days of war commences, at which point both sides can free fire on each other. If a structure in high-sec gets reinforced, so the shields get blown off, it's 5.5 days of reinforced period between the shield timer and the shield timer going down, and then the hull where the structure is destroyed. The only exception to this is war headquarters. War headquarters have a reinforced period of only 24 hours, and if a war headquarters is destroyed, the war ends in 24 hours. If you want to help somebody in a war, you can join as an ally in 4 hours for the defender. So how do you go about defending a structure? This is what our normal timeline looks like. On The day before the war, you declare the war. On the first day the war is live, you reinforce the defender's structure. Then you wait on days 2 through 5. And on day 6, you have your first opportunity to destroy the structure if you rolled well, and if you rolled badly, you destroy it on the 7th day. If it's just you defending, you can show up to defend your structure here. But if you want to play offense a little bit and try to defend yourself more actively, you have some options starting from the moment the war starts. So as soon as the war is declared, you can join it as an ally. And then you can reinforce the war HQ on the first day of the conflict. Unlike your structure, your defending structure, where you have to wait 5 days, you can attack the war HQ the next day. And if you fail to blow it up, you can reinforce it again, and then attack it again, and then reinforce it again, and attack it again. 3 or 4 times usually before your structure gets blown up. Now, if you start later, maybe you ally in on the 2nd day, or the 3rd day, or the 4th day, or the 5th day, you still have options where you end up destroying the HQ before your structure dies and save your structure. Now, sorry for lecturing you guys about high-sec mechanics so much, so I'm going to actually get to the pitch here. What we can see from the amount of structures that are dying is that many players are unable to mitigate the risk of owning and defending their structures. A lot of players seem to want to put a structure down, but don't have the liquidity and end up skimping on security in terms of their fittings, or they just don't have the knowledge on how to fit those properly. And as we've seen in the past 3 months, almost 2 trillion worth of losses in just this area of medium structures and high sec. So I think there's a market here. So here's what Eve Kickstart's going to do. Eve Kickstart is going to offer access to structures at a small down payment with 0% interest. Any clients who we engage with are going to pay against a premium of 120 to 150% based on their location. The client will pay against that principal weekly for 3 months while the structure is held in a holding corp. And during this period, the client will control almost all aspects of the structure. So they'll set and collect tax, decide on non-market services, have input on rigging. Some of the rigging is going to be reserved for defensive fittings, and then they'll be able to set docking rights as well. And Eve Kickstart will control security, so the structure's fitting, things like the docking ACL while at war, and when the reinforcement timer is. At the end of that 3-month period, when the structure is paid off, the structure and the holding corp get transferred to the client. There's also some possibility of increasing margins when the contract ends by offering additional one-time services. So fuel shipments are an example of this. We order an additional 3 months of fuel, for example, for the structure, and we would haul it in. Set up defensive grids. These are bookmark grids around the station, which are going to be useful to anybody who's defending the structure, just so you can reposition your fleet without combat probes. And then also pre-stocking defense ships. This is something that I'm thinking about. You could work with the client, figure out what they can fly, figure out how many people they have, and then work out a doctrine that would suit them. What are the benefits to the client? Because if I'm a client, I'm paying 120 to 150% of the value of the structure. So why would I do this instead of just, saving up for a few months and then buying the structure myself? So one, obviously, it's a low initial investment for personal and personalized structure access. The contracts are exclusively are limited in term. We're not going to exceed 3 months. I don't like the idea of dealing with anybody in perpetuity, and I don't like the idea of starting a renting system. It's not something I'd want to administrate, and it's not something I would feel good about. If the structure ends up getting destroyed in the first 2 to 2.5 months, the client is actually better off than if they had just purchased the structure and anchored it themselves. They would have spent less money with us than if they had done that. At the end of the contract, the client inherits with a structure with a proper fit, which is going to serve them moving forward. The client doesn't have to handle fuel or logistics for the duration of that contract because the structure will be fueled by us. The client is war immune because the structures are in a holding corp. And at the end of it, the client gets holding corp control, and potential adversaries who may have been watching the structure to see when the contract ends, maybe, will not know when the contract has ended. Benefits to the provider. So obviously, we're charging a premium. We get to collect that premium. And the second thing is, some of these structures, I'm sure, will end up getting war decked. And when they get war decked and reinforced, we get access to fights in our time zone with good information. on as well as things like the gunner. Obviously, it's on a defensive grid, so it gives us an advantage there. I've see a few challenges here, and I also see that I'm over on my presentation time, so I'm going to try and speed it up. But there's three main sort of challenges that I expect to face. One of them is finding the market. It's going to be difficult to interface with potential clients, and it's going to be difficult to establish baseline trust. One of the things that's going to help find the market, I think, is my appearance here. And I have a huge platform now with this idea because of the OzTank. And it's going to be difficult to establish, like I said, baseline trust, because fundamentally somebody is going to be paying this premium on a weekly basis with the assumption at the end of the contract they're going to get the structure, and that requires some trust from them. Obviously, administration, potentially we're dealing with lots of clients with many structures. That shouldn't be too bad to deal with. Everyone's going to be paying on the same day. Everyone's going to be paying to their own holding corp, so I can just log into the character and check. At which point I can take action because the character is going to be right there if something's awry. And we're going to keep the service area manageable with price incentives. The reason there's a 120 to 150% range there is because you're going to get a higher rate depending on how irritating it might be to defend your structure, just as far as the logistics trail is concerned. Logistics tail, excuse me. And then obviously, it would be remiss for me to talk about how much money worth of structures got exploded and then not address the risk of explosion. So destruction and default are two main areas where loss is going to be a factor. So client may fail to make payments. If a client fails to make payments, that's not too bad. If a payment gets missed, the structure will start unanchoring. And then they've got a week to catch up, otherwise the structure unanchors. So if we have to unanchor a structure, the rigs are covered by the down payment, and rigs are something you would lose. And aside from fuel, you get all the modules and everything back. So that's not default is not too bad. Destruction, obviously, very bad. It's a total loss. But there's really not too much that can be done about that aside from a good faith effort to defend the structures, as well as some of the mitigation that we talked about in a previous slide. I don't think that there's really anybody in the game who can guarantee the safety of a high-sec structure. I think that's should be pretty front of mind with the TTT exploding. Fundamentally, if enough people want your structure to die, it will die. So I'm not going to pretend to be able to guarantee the longevity on anything there. But I can say that I'm confident that a majority, or maybe even a large majority of cases, would see successful defenses in the case of a war deck. So the ask for this is 80 billion ISK for 20% of returns. This will be the initial fund for medium structures, with the goal in mind that this will fund 5 parks of 3 structures each. It is possible for me to manage 19 separate operations at a time, but I prefer to stick with 5 just for the starting phase. And the initial funding value is going to provide some security to clients as well, mainly in that trust building category, just because when you look from the client's perspective and they're like, well, why would you actually give me the structure instead of just taking all my money and then unanchoring the structure when I'm done paying you? It's just, there are easier scams to run. Namely, I could have just scammed the 80 billion ISK from the investment. So that's essentially the crux there. And then if we're successful, increase funding of an additional 135 billion ISK, which would allow us to expand into large structures. But that's not something I'm asking for now, because we would need to see medium structure clients graduate into large structures before we looked into that. I want to demonstrate the efficacy of the idea and demand before moving for additional capital there.
All right.
I'm sorry I went a bit over on time, but
That's
I'm
all
happy
right.
to go.
That's all right.
With questions and discussion.
I enjoyed the lecture. I think we're also here to educate new players or people that might just be interested in the show. That's what we're doing on Twitch, right? So I think it's interesting. We all learned something. to your idea, I have a few questions, and then I'll hand it over to the
Absolutely.
investors for a few other questions. I'm picking some questions up from chat. The biggest discussion, I think, would be, I mean, how do you avoid the holding corp being, instantly war decked by groups like Black Flag?
Sure. So the idea here is obviously not to have our holding corps called Eve Kickstart Holding Corp 1 through 5, we're gonna try and have some obfuscation there.
Okay. So you're basically your strategy would be a
Oh,
little
I'm
bit
sorry.
cloak and
I
dagger.
interpreted that as targeted. I appreciate the so I interpreted that as like Black Flag targets the operation specifically, but just in general, I expect that some holding corps absolutely will get war decked by Black Flag. Um, like I said, I'm a member of EM, and a large part of what we do is high sec warfare. Um, Obviously, I'm not a director in EM or anything, and even if I was the director, I couldn't mandate people to go show up to fights. But I'm confident that in the case that a structure gets reinforced, we'll be able to put on a defense for that. We'll have people and we'll have ships to defend the structure in that case. I'm not. I don't want an issue. I don't want to necessarily issue a challenge, but I think that in the case of most war decks, we have a pretty good record of being able to defend structures.
Yeah, I think in that
Hope that
respect,
answers your question.
it does, and I think in that respect, the Oz tank is a blessing and a curse because, of course, it will give you some attention on the demand side, but it will also give you some attention on the Wardeck side. But I appreciate the honest answer there. The other one is the structures that you were showing in the beginning. Most of them seemed abandoned, right? So I mean, your premise, the premise for this idea that you're saying is a lot of people cannot defend their structures, but is it possible that most of the cases that you're seeing are just abandoned structures?
Well, there's absolutely abandoned structures out there. I mean, I know the Oztank has provided funding actually to
Yeah.
a group that's running around and destroying abandoned player-owned structures, posses, I believe. Uh, I will say that even just as a member of EM, I've gotten requests from small industrial corps, and smaller groups, newer groups, saying, "Hey, you guys are anti-pirates. There are pirates shooting my structure," and we get there, and the structure has like a neutralizer on it and a target painter. So there's, I think I was talking to uh, our director the other day, and he said he's gotten like I think like 20 mails recently. He didn't define recently, but on of just requests for people like, hey, we don't have the resources to do this. Can you come help? And then it turns out when you inspect, uh, when the timer is, it's like 8 hours out of time zone, and the structure is not fitted, and the person doesn't respond, doesn't accept the ally request in. So I think there's a large demand for structures that are owned by players, uh, that end up getting attacked and blown up because they don't have the know-how or the resources to defend them.
Okay, Golden. Let's go. Let's go to Golden CEO for questions.
Yeah. So, firstly, I really like this idea. I think it's something which a lot of people are going to be quite interested in. There's a lot of different high sec groups which either don't have the capability to hold a defense for their own structures, or just may want the sort of credit facility that this provides effectively. Um, on the note of defense, I just wanted to mention that actually, so because I run a group called Hogs Collective for quite a long time, which is primarily based in high sec, and so we've actually fought against EM. Those of you who watch the scope videos, you may have seen a video a couple of years back about a massive battle in Heck, which was between Hogs Collective, Electrus Matari, and at the time Pyrat, or what is now sort of merged into Black Flag. I personally, just based on all that, have quite a lot of confidence in EM's ability to defend these structures. So I've got personal experience there, which lends some significant credence to this idea. One thing I just wanted to mention, it's not really a sort of problem necessarily, but I like the idea of the obfuscation, just to make it so that it's not immediately obvious when these structures are part of this project. You mentioned though that like the corp can be transferred to the person. You might want to consider some way of just maybe keeping a CEO holding character there or something, because otherwise the changing of CEO could potentially be a giveaway that the contract has ended and therefore the structure won't be defended by EM if it got attacked, for instance.
Sure.
Yeah, because I seen a natural clone killer is actually in the chat, and he mentioned that he's going to go looking for them. So seems like there will be some adversary there. I think
Absolutely.
the main sort of question is because the mechanics of the plan sound. It's just a question of whether EM themselves are going to be willing to sort of defend these structures. I think that actually you'll meet a lot less resistance than some people are worrying about, just because with good obfuscation you can avoid that risk to quite a significant degree. But is there sort of a commitment from EM at the time, or at the moment it's sort of just in initial discussions?
So I've had conversations with members internally. The most important thing from from both Alliance leadership and our diplomat is that this fundamentally is my project, and this is not a project that EM uh, is providing a full commitment to. So you are doing business with me, and it's very likely, it's very likely we're going to have a lot of friends come along to help with defenses, because fundamentally this is defending the assets is defending my and our investment. But like I said earlier, even if I was the director of EM, I couldn't mandate EM members to go show up for a defense. It's just not how we work. But I think we do also have a long record of showing up to help out with high-sec warfare, and we have a pretty good record at that. So I'm confident we can conduct defensive operations, but this pitch does not have a guarantee from EM that a structure is going to happen, or there won't be some overlapping commitment that prevents the defense from working.
Okay. So in that case, there's two things I'd sort of say. One is it could be worth considering changing the pricing structure slightly so that maybe you charge a higher amount to add some extra margin to basically pay and compensate people who are willing to show up for fights. Because, like a sort of insurance company, if you pull that all together, actually, the amount that you could pay people to show up for a defense when sort of everyone, even all the people who aren't actually being attacked, are chipping in just based on the cost of joining the program, which I think for the kind of guaranteed defense, a lot of people would be happy to pay even a 200% sort of markup, would be something worth considering. Another way of also offsetting the cost is basically making sure that you scoop the core, because obviously that's not only a way to reduce the cost of a destroyed structure, but also to prevent an extra incentive for people trying to attack the structures. I actually have some tools which some of the people in EM may remember this. Allows us to sort of make sure that we can warp in and scoop a core on the same server tick that the structure actually pops. I'm quite happy to share those with you if it means that the plan's more likely to be a success. But
Nice.
I think overall, that's the only question I have, is just sort of how to guarantee defense, because one of the main draws of this, or the main things that people are going to be asking, is if I pay the markup, be it 50%, 100%, 200%, whatever it is this structure going to be defended? Obviously, they're not out ISK if it gets destroyed early, so there's that, but they do also want a bit of a security guarantee. So I would say it might be worth considering upping the price and finding people who would be willing to act as mercenaries and defend structures for a fee that you could kind of keep on retainer. But other than that, I'm liking the sound of this.
Sure. I mean, I hadn't thought about mercs too much, just because I'm confident I'm confident that structures that get attacked will have defenders there to run a defense. But yeah, that is an interesting idea. I was planning on 40% of returns already going back into the fund, as far as sorry, I just got a message from somebody.
We're gonna have to wrap up here in a second.
Sorry.
Look.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about mercs. It's an interesting idea, and that's what I guess have to say on that right now.
Crota, we have time for one question.
Well, in the interest of time, I don't need to ask. Well, okay, the only question I was going to ask is, have you trialed this on a small scale? I guess that's just yes or no.
No. We do a lot of defenses, but I have not tried this model on a small scale.
Okay.
All right, so I guess we're ready to vote. By the way, to all the viewers that are new, we do have a poll running always when there's a pitch. Today's the first pitch ran a little over time, so the poll is already closed. The chat is saying 61% yes to fund and 39% no. So it's a slight. It's slightly positive, but not as positive as we have seen in the past. I'm surprised because I really, really like the idea. I know there are a lot of risks. I think one thing that I do feel is a bit high is the initial investment. So 80 billion is a lot. You could try, as some people are saying in chat, you could definitely try with to test it with less. So I think
Absolutely,
regardless of whether you get the 80 billion together, I think we could you could start also with less. So I'll make a start. I like the idea. I believe in it. I also don't think that there's a very little chance of total loss in this. So that's why I don't think the risk is super huge. I really like your presentation. I like your motivation. So I'm going to pull my weight. I'll pull in 20 billion. Golden.
I'm happy to match that 20 bill.
Cool. Crota?
20 for me as well.
20 for Crota as well. So Cloak, we have 60 billion, and Eden Trade is not here today, but Eden Trade, he did write to me that he wanted to fund some of the projects if he liked them, and I think that he definitely will like your idea, and so possibly you will get your full 80. So we'll definitely get this idea rolling, and thank you so much for coming here.
thank you very much for your time.
All right, so nice first idea. Really liked it. Let's here we won't spy on his screen sharing. All right, perfect. Let's go into the next idea. The next idea is by someone called Sandromin. All right, Sandromin. We're going to go over here. And we're going to pull in Sandromin. Sandromin, first of all, is that how I say your name? And are you here?
Yes, I am here. And that is how you pronounce my name. 1 second, just adjusting volumes. Every time I enter a Discord channel, the new people usually are pretty loud for me. I don't know what it is. I
get the problem. All right. I've already had my own Discord struggles today, so you're all good, man.
Okay. And then is that video link working? The Video Ninja.
So I can share your screen, but you need to share your presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
There you go. Perfect.
Here we go. Slideshow. Cool. There we go. So I'm presenting on the E-War Frigate Bowl. So it's an idea that I had, say 2-3 months ago. Ruminated in my mind, and I want to go into a little bit of depth on that. So to start off, we got the bottom line up front. The idea is essentially an attempt to introduce an element of sports competitiveness for EVE players to watch and enjoy. Sorry about that. So EVE is a competitive game, and I want to bring that. Oh man, I am flubbing up today. Sorry,
it's
about
all
that.
good.
Okay,
we're all friends. We're all friends here. We just want to give you money.
It's also a little bit distracting because I got an EVE client open and I'm watching something, but I digress. I want to bring something like soccer to EVE, essentially, because at the end of the day, it's fun to watch, fun to play. So for other people who may not be so physically inclined, they can do something similar in EVE. So next slide here, we got why don't people watch EVE, and this kind of is a head scratcher to me. growing up, I read all those articles about these big battles in EVE where we're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars getting destroyed. Yet we don't really see a large viewer presence in EVE, and I wanted to kind of boil down that essence. And looking at the numbers on these alliances, you're talking about 30,000, 40,000 people in each of these alliances, yet we only have about 2,500 viewers on EVE, and that's on a good day. I think that's actually a little bit inflated due to the streaming events going on right now. Compare that to something like Albion Online, very similar game, very similar in concept, PvP loot-based kind of game. 3 times, 4 times the viewership on an average day. So why is that? And one of the things that I thought of was, well, really it's because people look at EVE, they see the overview, they see it's a little bit clunky, they don't understand what's going on. They're watching it and it just doesn't connect to them. So my attempt here is to bridge that gap for the average viewer on Twitch to go look at EVE and say, oh, I see what's going on here. That this is basically a soccer game. You have like a little field here. People are trying to move, a ball back and forth between the goals and score, right? So why the E-War Frigate Bowl? So first off, we have low skill requirement, high skill ceiling, okay? Whenever you start playing EVE and you go and you start engaging in PvP, one of the first things that I've noticed that people put you into is interceptors or E-War frigates. And the reason why is because low entry barrier to, play that play style. Frigates are really easy to train into, but there's a lot of skill expression with frigates. So like I say, low skill requirement, high skill ceiling. People who fly frigates in faction warfare, they might know what I'm talking about, where you can do a lot of stuff with a frigate and you can be very ingenious. And then, as I mentioned before, it's pretty simple to connect this to real life concepts. You may not know what an overview is if you've never played EVE. You may not know what like a health bar is represented by on that overview, and you may not know what a micro warp drive is, but you see a couple of dots bouncing a ball on a goal, on a field, starts to make more sense. And then you got those teams, those goals, those rivalries that build up as a result of sports competitiveness. And then it's infinitely more approachable for Twitch streaming. On the bottom there, you see in the bottom left there, that's the average PIFA screen. It's not exactly a user-friendly well, I'll take that back. It's not exactly a user, like you look at it, it's not welcoming, and it puts people to sleep sometimes. So I want to put something into EVE that's a little bit more understandable, and it's got a little bit of that panache. Oh, hold on a second. So the format, as I mentioned, it's a team sport. 2 divisions, 4 teams, 6 members on each team with 1 team captain. These teams will go and conduct a round robin where every team plays each other in sequence. And then the top 2 teams in each division move on to a single elimination final. Pretty simple format. In total, that's going to be 6 matches for each division round robin for a total of 12, plus 3 more matches for the single elimination final. So 15 matches total. The rules in a nutshell, as I said, 6v6. T1 frigates, though, team captains have a little bit more variety. They can select a couple of Navy frigates. Essentially, you just use tractor beams to pull a jet can with 1 missile in it to the opposing goal on a field of 100 kilometers by 50 kilometers. The team with the highest score after 4 minutes, they win. Pretty simple. And like I said, T1 frigates only. T2 frigates were considered but abandoned because they're just too strong. In that type of format, it just doesn't make sense to have T2 frigates. So, on to the prizes and why people should care about this. The grand prize in my format is 8 billion ISK for the number 1 team. Second place gets 4 billion ISK. Third place gets 2 billion ISK. Every team that participates as well will get 500 million ISK just for participating. This is to encourage people, actually coming in and trying. And if you're a viewer and you want to participate in this, that could be you, that guy right there holding all that money. As for the investors, 20 billion is in totality. That's to fund the prizes and the color commentators that we hope to bring on board to make it a little bit more interesting to watch. Anything extra will go towards prizes. I did include a segment in my proposition on the thread about how I'll be reaching out for additional funding via Reddit. And whoever contributes the most, I hope to give you a little bit of vanity by letting you name the division, one of the divisions for the leagues. So for returns, I'm looking at selling a few advertisement blocks to give 50% of that revenue back to the OzTank investors. So for you guys, get a little signpost, and that converts to money for the investors. Beyond that, questions.
Love it. Okay. I love the discussion about soccer and football in chat. No matter what you say, you're going to be hated by half the world.
Well, it's true, but there's one half that's more important.
The thing is, if you say football, you're kind of safe on both sides. Love it. I have a billion questions. The first question would be, have you tested this out? Is this something that you play every Saturday? How do you know this works?
It's not something I play every Saturday. I'm actually a wormholer by trade, so it's a little bit out of my realm of expertise. I do know people who have played it before, and they've enjoyed it. I just wanted to formalize a more concrete rule set for the game. So I haven't played it before. We'll be doing extensive play testing, hammering out the rules before we actually get to the streaming period for the matches.
And I'm not sure. I might have missed this in your presentation, but how do you avoid interference?
So there's actually a couple ways that came to mind. One is doing it in a wormhole. You can actually make it relatively safe by rolling off connections, such that there's going to be negligible outside interference. Another option that I've looked at is putting it in an area that is pretty outside of the purview of what most people would consider reachable space. So we're talking low sec systems that have minimal to no traffic at all. Basically free from being bothered. There will be precautions taken to make sure the stream is sanitized so people don't get involved that way as well.
And have you tried streaming this? Do you know how to, or is this something that basically you're relying on others on, or on us?
No. So I have not streamed this before. I have done some streaming in the past on Twitch to varying degrees of success. I'm not like a major Twitch streamer, more of an internet niche micro celebrity, but I have done some streaming in the past where I do have a little bit of experience with that. That being said, I have some contacts who are color commentators. They have a little bit more experience with streaming, especially in the tournament format, than I do, and I'll be relying on them for some pointers and tips, etc.
Okay. Crota, what do you think about this idea? Do you have questions?
Yeah, obviously it is a bit closer to concept than anything else, not really tested at the moment. I think you answered one of my questions in the presentation. How do you get the first teams to turn up? And I guess your answer is really going to pay them 500 million a player. Anyway, is that that was
not
correct?
A player, per team. Just
per team. Okay.
Yeah.
And remind me, how many people in a team? Four people in a team?
Six people in a team.
Okay, so you're getting about 80 million for turning up, I suppose. And okay, I guess that question, that's not that much. How do you get the first match off the ground? Is the obvious question. Because if only half the people turn up, it's a bit of a non-starter.
Yeah, so I'll do my best to coordinate beforehand to make sure that everybody is aware of time, location, what they need to be doing, and to square away their stuff, so that way when the day comes and the stream is broadcasting, we'll have two teams. That being said, I do have a couple of teams that are already interested in the prospect of participating, just because it's fun, not necessarily because of the prize money, though the prize money is a good incentive. I mean, 3 out of the 8 teams are going to get a pretty good chunk of change, right? Because there was a first, second, third prize.
And to be fair,
So-
if we pitch it on our Discord, Crota, to like 7,000 people, I mean, we'll find a 6v6.
Yeah, I'd imagine a 6v6 is relatively easy compared to something like Alliance Tournament, where it's 10v10. I know there's always troubles with Alliance Tournament. That's why I actually scaled down the team sizes to what they are.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions, Crota?
No, none for me.
Golden.
I really like the idea. The kind of idea of having like a physical sport in the game is pretty cool. My suggestion for avoiding interference would be hold it inside a large pos shield. That way, not only will other people not be able to just come and shoot or bump the people, but also you can actually have people come and watch physically without being able to actually interfere. So that could be a good way to. And actually, just to be completely blunt, I've not interacted with POSs in God knows how long. So if they've done, I guess you can't jam in a field. So
Yeah, it's a little bit
right.
difficult to do E-War in a POS bubble.
Damn. Okay, all right, maybe not then. I'm sure there'll be other ways to fix that.
But the way wormhole mechanics is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the way wormhole mechanics works is once you roll off a static, there's basically a very small, negligible chance that someone's going to be rage rolling into you. You won't have any interference from your statics for a good couple of hours.
Also, I think
that's
people might also defend it, right? You can also pay mercs. I mean, if this is something that people actually like and gets popular, I think people might just let it happen. And I realize that in EVE that doesn't really happen, but I think if you have enough people that care, they will defend it possibly.
Yeah.
And that's besides all of the other precautions that you can take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think the only things for me would be, as Oz mentioned, it would be good to have a sort of proof of concept or just brief test match or something, just to see if there's going to be any unexpected problems. But also to help you kind of nail down the rules in regards to what people can do with webs, target dampers, and that kind of stuff. So I like the idea, but would need to see a sort of test match first.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a trivial problem. I have plenty of people who are willing to actually do some testing. I have some people to help out with that. I kind of got preoccupied with some other stuff, but we're actually lined up to do that sometime then in the next week.
Okay. So chat says 73% support. So that's good. You
I think that's pretty solid.
Despite calling it soccer, you convinced quite a few people. Very good. Golden, how about you start this time?
Yeah, I'm happy to invest. I propose to sort of split the proposed amount with the investors that are willing to join in, just on the condition that test matches are done first and revised as needed until things are kind of nailed down.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I'm done with splitting it. I really like the idea. I can't imagine it yet, but based on a test match that I would love to watch, I think this could be really, really cool. So I'm in as well. Crota?
Obviously, it's close to concept, so I'm in. Anything up to 10. Happy to split it 3 ways.
Cool. And then we'll ask Eden Trade if he wants to go in the 4th part, or we just split it 3 ways. Sandroman, I'm still curious what the niche is that you're a celebrity for. But you at least now you might be getting famous for allowing football in space. So congratulations, you've got your 20 billion, and we'll be looking for your updates.
Yeah, will do.
Also, I just mentioned if we don't call this Spaceballs, that's a huge wasted
Oh.
opportunity.
Yes, of course, Golden.
Okay.
You have the best ideas today already. The first one, you had a fantastic idea. Now you have good ideas, man. It's your
Well,
day
I mean,
today.
I did say top contributor gets to name the leagues, maybe the sport too.
Very good. Perfect. All right. We'll go to the next candidate. Gentlemen, thanks for stopping by. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, go watch Spaceballs if you've never seen it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right. We are moving to candidate number 3, and candidate number 3. Let's see. I need to move over here. I know we switched the order up a little bit. So candidate number 3 is Kukela. So let's move presumably Mr. Kukela in here. Kukela, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello?
Hi. Am I butchering your name, or is that just about right?
No, Kukela's just great. Thank you very much for asking.
Kukela, fantastic. Kukela, you brought us an idea today that that you called Web Jita Ordering and Delivery Service. That sounds very tradey, so we cannot wait to see your presentation.
Yeah, super cool. Do you need the link again for it? Or
Possibly,
is it still live from earlier?
it should be showing now, so I might need a new link. So if you have the link, just pop it over, and I'll share your screen.
Let me do share screen. I shall do this now. This one, that one.
That looks good.
It's-
There we go.
it's-
Perfect.
There we go.
We can see it.
Super cool. Excellent. Super cool. Yeah. So in short, like the tagline name really is Jita anyway. And I went for the slightly longer name to give people a better idea of the underlying purpose of what it is. So in short, the idea is something I've sat on for a few years and haven't got around to coordinating, but it's basically the idea to ship goods to people remotely via a outside of web ordering system. So some of you who have been here as long as I have may remember Narg Amazon that used to ship literally ships everywhere with escrow before contracts existed. But even today, still, the Jita market is very centralized. It's almost impossible to fulfill large orders of things if you want to do something at a place outside Jita. And some of you may know the fact that I run I run Eve's standings business. I run the standings business in Eve, and I have since 2009. And so I'm very familiar with things like our runners get a quote for a job for like Zor and Sons or completely random corporations, and then we have to cart a missioning ship halfway across the galaxy to get set up. And it's just, inconvenient. So the idea is that we can ship goods to people using an out-of-game web ordering system and make a bit of profit while we do so. We have the technology to do this now. We can pull the price from ESI quite comfortably. You can look at sort of recent prices and come up with an average or a close enough value so you don't have to keep pulling the price every time somebody orders it. So, for example, we can update the orders every hour rather than updating them every time somebody wants to pull it. And then we have the ability to pay people using the way that corp wallets work at the moment. We can get the ESI to tell our agents that the money is there. They then buy the goods with their own money, safe in the knowledge that because we as a trusted sort of central point have got the client money, they're able to buy the goods, ship the goods either themselves or using an existing freight service such as Red Fog or PushX or whatever. And then when the client has received those goods, we can pull that using contracts again. So we can get the agent's ESIs to tell us when the goods are in the hands of the final person. And at that point, we have the manual stage of somebody logs in, we pay the agent for their work. So if they've shipped 100 mil of goods, we pay them the 100 mil, we pay them their actual pay for having done it, whatever percentage that would be. and then a very small margin every time it goes to Plex for Good. And so again, for those of us who've been here for a really long time, will know that businesses used to scale in Eve really well, and they still do to a degree. The number one sort of scaling business was always casinos, lottery games, so Summer Blink, things like that. And that money basically funneled huge wealth into the hands of a few private individuals by taking small margins from trades that happened in seconds. And to a degree, this is what this idea is built from, because if we can build something that people use very, very frequently, even if our margins are tiny, we can make a huge amount of money being built up for Plex for Good. And it's quite literally money that would otherwise be deleted from the game. If you go to Jita and people are sort of buying and selling things there, you're paying broker's fees, you're paying sales taxes. It's just a way of preserving money in the system that then goes to Plex for Good. We add some new content to the game. So client, obviously, they can quite literally go to a website, log in via ESI, either paste a basket, paste a fit, or search on the market using a system that looks like the Jita market. Our intention was that it closely recreates the in-game client for comfort, so it's not some like weird blocky system that looks unfamiliar. It looks close enough in concept that it's comfortable for players to use. And then obviously we have kind of career progression for agents. If people want to make a job out of this, some of my friends in Eve who have played longest and have been most dedicated to space truckers, they just love hauling stuff. I don't understand it personally, but they really, really like it. And so I've always been keen on finding those weird little niches that people enjoy, like high-sec salvaging or things like that. And it gives us the opportunity to potentially create another role like that, a fulfillment agent, essentially. And then, of course, we have the managers, which are the people with wallet access. So these are the ones who can actually pay everybody out. And while we get started, this would just be me. And again, I've provided a standing service in Eve since 2009. So as far as I'm concerned, the money's not at risk of going walkabouts. I also run a free third-party service to secure. Oh, it's not free. So it used to be free. It's not free anymore. A third-party service. So people have trusted me with like Fortisar transfers and things like that. The process flow is essentially client logs into the website, has some items, a basket of items, like an Eve appraisal paste. I think Eve appraisal's gone away, but something like that. Our system then tells them how much money they need to transfer to our corporation. They do so. The ESI confirms the payment for that. The agent, knowing that the money is there, buys all the items. The agent ships the items. Client completes the order because the ESI confirms that they've received it, and then the manager pays the agent. And so this can happen at any point. It could happen days later. The main thing, of course, is that our agents have enough cash flow to continue fulfilling orders so that they don't have downtime where they're out of money. So having multiple managers who have the ability to pay this money out is probably going to become important in the long term. But it shouldn't be too difficult until we hit a scale, and then at that point we can deal with it then. So the features that we've discussed with the developer that we've kind of retained for this create orders of items to buy. It can copy older orders. So if you've got a favorite basket, or if you've just set up a missioning ship in one area and you want to copy that order, you can do so. There's a custom personal list of favorited items within it, so that if you buy things regularly, for example, you like flying around and doing events and you want to buy ammo and repair paste or whatever it is that you consume as you play the game, you can do so. We also have some of the backend done for discrete orders. So this is agents won't be able to see the client name, only the destination. So this is essentially if clients don't want our pool of agents to know who they are. That option exists. I'm not sure it'll be very popular, but it's possible. We can copy and paste from EFT to fits and buy multiple fits. We can copy and paste items to manufacture and buy materials needed, so we can ship you materials. And it's got detailed statistics of each client and overall for management, so that we've got the back end, the ability to kind of see what the throughput is. Is it growing? Is it getting smaller? Do we need to scale in certain ways? Do we have enough agents? For example, are orders going too long unfulfilled in the Australian time zone? Do we need to do something about and financial transparency and a detailed view of the calculation. So the main thing I really wanted to do is to have something that really shows people they're contributing to Plex for good. Again, I don't know if anybody here has been here long enough to remember Summer Blink, but in that casino site, in the top right, it actually had a ticker for like the amount of money that people have won on Summer Blink, and it ticked up just so constantly and so frequently. It got to like 14 trillion, I think, before eventually the proprietor of that service was banned for one reason or another. But I would really like something like that so that people know while they pay a small margin, they're actually putting money towards real world problems. We're looking at the initial percentage for the fees will be 10% on overall items cost for under 50 mil. 500 mil orders, 5% for over 500 mil but below 1 bill, and then 2% for over 1 billion orders. So kind of open to changing these. These aren't set in stone. They're just roughly what we think will be functional and will provide our agents enough money to make some profit for themselves and for the overall operation to put money towards Plex for good. 40% of the amount that we take will be paid to agents for their effort. Obviously, they're picking the order, they're shipping the order. We're looking at the moment, this is a bit more perspective, we're thinking of building up like a buffer to form in the management fee, just in case there's cancellations or if we need to handle discrete orders ourselves, after which the fees will reduce or this cut will go to Plex for good. This might not be necessary. It depends how much funding that we are able to secure. We might have a little bit of a buffer anyway, which we have included in the overall proposal. And then the rest of the 50% will be held by the corporation to be donated for Plex to Plex for good. Fortunately, and it's very well timed, I think they announced at FanFest that Plex for Good is going to be a perpetually open thing. So rather than us waiting, hypothetically years for a real world disaster to happen, which sounds a bit morbid, Plex for Good will just be open all the time and we can just make continuous donations. So it'll probably be done weekly or monthly at that point. So the total investment that we're looking for is 40 billion-esque. 20 bill will be used to pay a web developer to implement a prototype website that will handle the process. And we have engaged an ESI dev who's very experienced with this. The time estimate is 50 hours. 10 bill will be used to cover the cost of extra development. So in our experience, there's always something that goes wrong, or there's always a feature that's a really good idea down the line. And so this is a bit of a buffer for that. And then the final 10 bill will be used for beginning to process orders and buying the goods that people order. So that in this way, we've got a little bit of a buffer. We're able to pay people out and be ready to get the operation rolling. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this. We do have sort of long-term aspirations for this. The idea is if it gets off the ground, we'd love to also run a buyback for good. And in that way, we can kind of centralize not only shipping things to people, but receiving things from people. And that way we can cut even more of the broker's fee and sales tax away from the transactions and secure more money to Plex for good. But that's a very long-term aspiration. We'd want to see how this goes first. Thank you.
So first of all, I have to say the caliber of ideas today and the creativeness, the creativity that goes into the ideas today is just top notch. So just thank you and congratulations on that. Now, I have a ton of questions as usual. So let's start with hauling. I saw, you're taking 2% on orders over $1 billion. There has to be like a limit on the cubic meters as well that you can ship, right? Otherwise, 2% is going to be something that you just can't handle.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that. I could have been clearer in this. Basically, the workflow that we did for ordering, when you go to a very basic prototype website that we've got at the moment, which is not pretty enough to show you.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially what it does is you put in your destination system and it calculates how much it will cost to ship it to you by one of the commercial, the already existing things. So it literally automatically gives you a Red Frog quote for your goods. So the 2% is not to cover shipping. They would pay for shipping as though it were a Red Frog freight thing anyway. 2% is purely the markup for us picking those orders and then shipping them. So some of our agents might ship it themselves and they would be paid the red frog or the push X rate. But the 2% is not actually inclusive of the shipping. That's done separately. But because we've got their calculator built into the prototype, it would be able to it automatically tells you how many hauling trips it needs, how many ships it needs. We basically just ape their calculator and use it because our original intention was to just pay them to do all the hauling anyway.
And would you be using these services in the beginning, or would you try to immediately have your own haulers?
Well, that was the interesting thing. So when I first envisioned it, I thought, man, managing haulers is probably a nightmare. I don't want to do that. And so we prototyped this by talking to some of our mission runners, because that's kind of where the idea came from. We had people who are like, oh, I want to set up a burner no guile, but it's got to be in Heimatar, and I can't be bothered to ship all that junk to Heimatar. And so when we mentioned this idea to them and they seemed interested, we also had some of the same people who say, oh, I'd be an agent and a delivery person. I'd want to do both. So I'd say we'd be set up fully with the intention to just use the existing hauling services, because we don't really want to compete with them. And, I'm a big fan of emergent business, as you can tell from somebody here pitching you a second one when I've already run one for like 14 years. But, some of our people might want to do both, and we can't see a reason not to.
And so what you're really selling, the convenience you're really, or the service you're really selling is the convenience of having everything in one service, because, what I could do now is just log into my Jita alt, buy stuff, and then make a push X contract, right? So that would be the exact same as your service, wouldn't it?
Yeah, essentially. It would be the difference being that we have potentially some functions within the website that are actually better than the in-game market. For example, favorite baskets and things like that. But yes, it would largely be the same thing, and that's the main reason that I wanted this to be a charitable profit-making enterprise. Because, I've been the type of person who've looked at the market and it's like, well, it's 5 mil to get it in this system, or it's 6 jumps for, 20 mil 6 jumps away, or 25 mil here. And there's that kind of pain point of like, should I buy it? Should I not buy it? If I knew that of that 5 mil, like 50% of it as a minimum was going to go to Plex for good, why wouldn't you? It makes it easier. But yes, largely it's about convenience to people, raising money for charity. And that's kind of it.
So I one last question, and then I'll pass it on off to Crota. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and be a little bit cynical, because on the one hand you could say, sure, you're replacing other services, or you're making something more convenient, and you're packaging it all in one, and then you're donating the profits to charity. On the other hand, you might also be taking their jobs away, or you're making their jobs less profitable because you're making more competition, and you don't care as much about profits because you're giving it to charity, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, to a degree. I think the main thing for me is that we are paying the hauler, we are paying the agents who pick the items. The whole idea is that the ecosystem actually works for the people who engage with it, but that there isn't large private profit making, like individual entities behind it. Like, for example, Summer Blink, to keep using it as an example, somebody came up with an idea for running a casino, and that's fine. They still needed people who logged in and contracted people winnings and managed it, and so those people were paid for their time. But largely, there was just a perpetually accumulating huge amount of money that went to the private individual who either had the idea or developed the website. And that's just really uncomfortable for me. Like, I think it was one of the very first casino owners had the first character in EVE ever to have every skill trained, because he was so astronomically wealthy because he had a casino that he injected every single skill in the game, like 400 million. So the idea is not to take the money from the people who are actually participating in the ecosystem and moving things and buying things and asking for things to be shipped. It's to take the money that would otherwise be accumulated perpetually in the hands of people who are extremely wealthy just because they had this idea and put that money towards Plex for Good rather than private profit, if that makes sense.
Sure. Crota.
I mean, I suppose the standout thing about this project is the ability to essentially trade or order goods without opening the client itself. So you could do it from work, really, really bad thing to say, and actually you could get around the step where you still have to pay your corporation. You could have a float, if I could do it, and I could sort of always pitch 50 billion with you. And so if I order on the website from work, it automatically gets done. So what that means is the website is everything. I mean, this whole idea is nothing without the website. And you sort of given ideas. I mean, just how certain are you can get this sort of website up and running? Because essentially you need 20 billion to even know if this is going to work or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had very early. We've got, like I say, a very early prototype that I don't resist sharing because it is, it's not fully featured. The ESI dev that I have worked with, I don't want to name the person. I don't know if I'm okay to name the person. They've developed tools in the last 3 years that have already seen usage in excess of 10 times the required amount to be an Eve partner. So they've taken multiple tools that have been grandfathered off and replaced them with more modern ones. So personally, I would be extremely confident, and I'm also happy to say that this money won't be leaving my hands until we have a fully functioning thing. It's not a case of pay them up front. I've known them for years. They just need to be paid for their time. And so it isn't a case of the money would go to the hands of some nebulous developer that nobody's ever heard of and then it will just disappear. We're very happy to have the arrangement where they deliver and then they get paid.
Okay, thank you. That's me off.
And in terms of, I mean, is there an ROI in this, or are we just funding this to kind of give you the initial funding so you don't have to fund it yourself? Because I mean, apparently you've been playing the game for a long time. You obviously created some good services here. You must be rich.
Well, when Plex for Good Ukraine came around, I actually donated everything I had to Plex for Good Ukraine, and the entire operating profits for the standings business I've run since 2009. I've always donated the profits to Plex for Good whenever it's come up. So I was borrowing 6 bill from somebody just after Plex for Good Ukraine happened. So it's there could be an ROI involved in this. It would just be a case of that money would be, instead of going to Plex for Good, we would build up a float to pay you back. That's completely viable. We could have 6 months of operation, and then we convert to a charitable enterprise. I'm really not bothered. So it's down to how the funders would feel about that, but it's completely a possibility. If the idea is profitable and the profit's there, happy to pay that out until that debt is paid, and then give it to Plex for Good.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. I was just trying to understand your motivation behind it, but that answered the question really well. Thank you. Golden.
Yeah. So I think you're in quite an interesting and good position with this, because of your personal history. I'm quite a happy customer of your standings business myself. There's a couple things. The first thing, and the kind of main issue I can see with this, have you got a plan as to how you're going to prevent malicious and false orders? So what's to prevent someone from placing an order on the website and then just never fulfilling the escrow requirement, or never actually, paying for it?
Well, the basic idea is that if they don't have a float and they never pay for it, nothing ever happens. So it would be as malicious as imagining going to a supermarket and then never doing it. The supermarket doesn't care. Until money's changed hands, we don't do anything. So we can quite comfortably have, if an order gets made and then never gets paid for, it just gets deleted in 24, 48, 72 hours, however long it would take if people do make orders that want to gum up the system, for example. And the other thing is, of course, in order to make this ordering work, we can have the external website require ESI validation. And so if there's a number of these different orders that come in, if somebody puts in 10 orders and never pay for them, we can just say, look, if you keep doing this, you're going to get ESI blocked, and if you want to roll a new EVE account to just make random orders in a thing, you can, but there's probably not a lot of point in doing it.
Yeah, that's just my main concern, because there's a lot of things at EVE which, even if there's no point to doing it, unfortunately, people will still do just to try and annoy someone. The other thing, which isn't a malicious thing, but I saw in an earlier slide you mentioned that pricing was going to be based on the Jita cell minimum price at the time. Would it be possible for the web dev to implement a way where it will calculate the kind of total cost according to what the price wall is? Because obviously it could be that the minimum order is quite a bit cheaper but won't fulfill their entire order, or the minimum order is just a little bit below what the price should be, someone misclicked, that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, actually, so that was discussed because, of course, we also don't want to have people being able to place orders for things that then they are able to manipulate and massively deviate the price floor by ordering weird items. And so that's part of the fact, is that if people place orders and then the price changes really dramatically, we can always just say, look, we're not fulfilling this. We think you are trying to scam us in one way or another. But yes, they've also looked at calculating market depth in order to say that, you can order 1-ish tile, you can order 100-ish tiles, but the price will change between them. And the prototype calculation that he has put together will change. If you try to order 1, you'll just get a set price. If you try to order 100, it will actually look at what the market depth is and provide you with a price fulfilling for all of them.
Perfect. Okay, so that addresses that concern completely. In that case, so you guys are using third-party shipping, which I actually think is a good plan. Have you guys spoken to any nullsec alliances about potentially integrating with their own logistics services? Because this is something which I can see it scaling to quite a degree, and much more so if it's something which people out in nullsec can use as well. And in a way, ideally, which then doesn't compete with their own logistics services. If their shipping services are still getting paid and their members are getting the items they want, that they're still happy.
Yes, yeah. So we haven't reached out to any because we felt that it was far too early stage. We'd want at least a working feature complete prototype of the website before we do that, to just do proof of concept. I know a few people in null alliances, which I should hope, having played the game for 17 years, you'll know at least one or two. But if we can prove that it works, at least on a small scale in GTA, I would absolutely love to open it up to a broader scale. The idea of shipping goods all over the place outside high sec as well, and then, like I say, watching a Plex for Good number tick up rapidly would be wonderful. So I'm open to the idea, and if we get off the ground and people here or people within your audience have the ability to kind of pull the trigger on setting this up within any null alliances, I'd be really interested in that.
Perfect. The only other thing I'd say, which actually isn't anything to do with sort of this particular project, but just because there's 400 people watching, if anyone from CCP is watching, please give some more transparency as to what the conversion rate for Plex for Good is. Myself, and I know several other people, have not donated to Plex for Good in the past, specifically because we have no idea how much it's actually going to contribute, and it would be great to see that changed. Sorry to platform a bit.
That's all right. Okay. So just to sum up, the funding that is required here is mostly for web development, 30 billion for web development and 10 billion for starting capital. So he's asking for a total of 40 billion. And I don't remember who started last time. Oh, first of all, chat said 72%. Man, these polls today are very, very close. Close to each other, I should say. 72% said yes, fund this. 28% said no. And just Crota, apparently you can't, since you have to pay in game, you're not going to be able to put an order in from work. So sorry to say.
I'd say if they pay in advance, if they say here's 10 bill, I'm going to order over the next week, then absolutely we can do that. But for particularly new customers and for people we aren't familiar with, yeah, that's
good. That's good, because Crota gives 10 billion to anyone, so for him that works. Crota, what did you start then?
This is a serious issue for my business model exists because I sit and do Dixie and I'm willing to sell stuff at a big markup to Jita, and there is no way that somebody can get something from Jita unless they had ordered it that morning from work. So this is a big issue to my business model. So I'm in for 20.
All right, Golden.
I'll match 20.
Wow, you two already matched the 40. That's kind of good for me because I see so many hurdles here with the development, and even though like your track record is fantastic, and I totally like I can totally see this working, I just have so many question marks of, is this actually going to get off the ground? I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna let Golden and Crota fund this, and I'm gonna take a step back here. But looks like you got your capital here, Kukela, and thank you for another fantastic presentation and a great idea. We can't wait to see where you take this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, what a day, huh, guys? These ideas are good today.
Quite a bit of funding, but some really good ideas.
Yeah.
If this gets off the ground, it will spur so many other ideas, because this is essentially, you don't have to access the game client to get something else done. You can already buy Plex and you can do skills on the portal, but this will open up a whole new ball game.
Yeah, and if I trust him and he's got a good track record and he builds that site, I mean, I might not be willing to fund the idea, but I'll hand over a line of credit if I can just sit order from my mobile. Hell yeah.
Well, it starts to open up banking and insurance and financial system.
More ideas for the Oz Tank. All right. Next we have. Sorry, Golden.
Titan mortgages when?
Yes. Yeah, we already had lease to own today, right? So very, very financial episode today.
That's true.
The candidate number 4 is somebody that last night streamed for over 10 hours because I went to bed and I saw him streaming, and I woke up and I checked Twitch and Ghosty Gaming was still streaming. So Ghosty Gaming, I hope you got some good sleep.
I'm a bit of a no-lifer.
Ghosty.
I'm so glad I didn't have to go first. I am so nervous.
Are you kidding? You stream EVE Online and yet you're nervous coming on this show?
I have no idea what I'm doing in this kind of environment. I am a fish out of water, so to speak.
You'll do perfectly fine because I know you're already entertaining on your stream. Do you want to? You can share your camera if you want to, Ghosty, but it's totally up
no,
to you.
I'm covered up right now. You don't want to see me, but I am.
All right.
Do you have the screen share up?
Yes. Hold on. There we go.
Okay.
Oh, wait. I need.
Yeah,
hold on. I need to get that last. I remember you updated your link. Hold on. Let me do this real quick. Ghosty is there, and we push him here. And that should work then. There you go. Ghosty, the stage is yours. Oh, by the way, to everyone, if you don't know Ghosty, follow, we'll do a shout out right now to Ghosty Gaming. Obviously, he's an EVE partner and is a very dedicated streamer. So go follow Ghosty Gaming. Go ahead, Ghosty.
All right, folks. I am here seeking additional funding to add on to my existing project, the POG Mining Division, aka the Pochven Obliteration Fleet. Just to give you a little bit of history about the POG group, Chaos, a fellow streamer, started these. He did Triglavian standings runs where he'd take people out, run incipient drone swarms and the hives so that people could get positive standings with the Trig. So they stopped shooting you on the gate. Anybody who's tired of getting shot by Trigs, by the way, it's very easy. Just come one night and we'll fix that. Well, when I got into it, I wanted to add the mining division because if people don't know, some of the best rocks in the game are out there in Pochven. You can pick these things up day one in a venture. You just have to kind of get over the fear of going to Pochven. I find a lot of people are scared of that. So we've come up with several strategies, mostly because I died to said strategy. I was like, oh God, that was a good idea. And then I copied these people. Of how to take a group of miners out and keep the barges themselves as safe as possible as you could have them in EVE Online. Like the Other assets in the fleet are almost always assumed losses, but to date, we've only lost 4 mining barges out of at least half a dozen fleets that I've run, and those barges were lost because of pilot error. They were too close to areas they weren't supposed to be, and they weren't able to warp out. I have some examples of how we defend it. But before I show that, just gonna give you guys some of the perks of operating in the POG mining fleet. Safety in numbers is one of the key concepts of EVE Online. If you're flying alone, you're just a target. But if you're flying with a pack of 10 or 20 miners, it's a lot less inviting for potential predators. I had been passing out free mining barges, but we are changing that to an SRP just because people were stealing the barges and trying to troll me.
Classic.
So the more barges we have on grid, the more unappealing we are. Like I liken it to a porcupine. Like, sure, you can come and kill us, and you might get a little bit of meat, but you're gonna take some pain for that meat. Like. Usually the only expensive assets on grid are the porpoise itself, running around 150 to 200 million, and then the mine link pod for another 50, and then the flycatcher usually runs about 80 to 100 million. And that's assuming we don't have, fancy PvP assets on grid like a Varger or something helping protect us. We don't always get that. Sometimes we do. But my goal is to provide consistent income for new and existing players so that they can help fuel their own ambitions in EVE Online. And then they can take the strategies that they learn in these fleets to other areas. Say they were always afraid to go to low sec or maybe go out into null to get those kind of rocks. They always felt like they had to be in high sec. Well, now they have some strategies they can take into these other areas to help defend themselves. I'm also working to try to build good relations with the other groups in the region. Currently, one of our biggest predators is Fraternity. But 9 times out of 10, if there's an OBS site for them to run, they'd rather do that than come and pick on us. It's usually when they're bored when they come after us. And that's usually a full evac situation. We're never trying to fight. And again, why I'm asking for funding is up until this point, I've been able to fund everything myself through my own adventures in EVE, but this next part I'm not going to be able to do alone. When I first started EVE, my very first CEO, Socrates Iscariot, it was the most generous dude you've ever seen. He would buy everything I mined at 100% Jita sell value. Like, not buy value, sell value. And he would give me free jump freighter services. We lived out in Venal at the time, so it was like 11, 12 jumps to get to Jita via jump freighter. He would do this for free. He wouldn't charge me collateral. He actually lost a jump freighter. The first in 10 years he ever lost, and it had like 2 billion worth of parts and ships for me that he didn't charge me for. He just went back to Jita, rebought everything, and got a new jump freighter and brought it out. And I want to recreate that environment because I felt like that was really what kind of ramped me into EVE. I started off with 1 account, and within a month I had 5, and here I am 4 years later, now an EVE streamer for EVE Online. It's been quite the journey, and I think Socrates really helped power that, and I want to try to give that back to everyone else. So I'm wanting 20 billion to set up the buyback program. I haven't worked out all the kinks because the value of the ores themselves are a bit unstable. A lot of people don't actually sell the ore. They just go ahead and reprocess it. So I'm going to have to figure out whether or not I want to do refined value or sell value. And I'm open to any suggestions you guys might have about that. But again, the idea is it's going to be like the most lucrative buyback program you've ever seen. No, it's not intended for profit. It's intended to give you the exact value of the rocks you picked up and remove the stress of having to get that to Jita and trying to figure out how to play the market yourself. Then, with all the ore that I've taken, I'm going to take on that stress and try to figure out how to turn it into ships and marketeering, and we'll take that journey together on EVE Online so that I can teach all the PvP bros that I stream to how to actually do some industry to fuel their carnage.
Love
Was
it.
that succinct?
Yes.
And now okay. Does anybody have questions about how we do these fleets and the fits themselves? Because I have all that prepared as well.
I mean, I've maybe do like a quick 1 minute run through.
All right. Well, here's an example of the procurers we're running. So first thing you notice, we're not running mining upgrades. We're running damage upgrades. This particular variant does 317 damage with Infiltrator 2s with 106 kilometer drone control range. That's really good if you don't know. So let me show you the grid that we're working with most of the time. So this is the ubiquitous mineral fields, the prime targets of the fleet. You have the warp-in beacon right here. This is where your flycatcher is going to sit, and the red circle indicates about the edge of the bubble. Attackers will land at the edge of the bubble, and then the PvP escorts will kind of position themselves around to engage anybody that comes in. The mining vessels will be way over here towards the rocks, usually about 40 to 70 kilometers from the warp-in. So if worse comes to worse and we just get blobbed, they have plenty of time to evacuate. They have instructions to not be next to rocks, be aligned to a safe or a structure, ready to go. The porpoise would be about the only assumed loss because half the time the damn thing's sieged. The other type of site that we can potentially do is the internal Besnacine field. Let me show you that. Now, these sites are much larger and more difficult to defend with the drone swarm. As you can see, it's almost 200 or 400 kilometers from point to point. And these sites are dead spaced, so you can't warp around. If we can get a booster, I can help move the barges around from the different sections. But the PvP escorts kind of just act as screeners and move around with the miners. These are the only two sites that we really tried to, because a very important mechanic that makes this work is the dead space mechanic. For those who don't know, a dead spaced site cannot be warped to in any other way. You have to warp straight to the beacon. You can't bookmark a rock. You can't combat scan a ship down. If you try any of that, you're still going to warp straight to the warp-in beacon. And that's where the bubble comes in. Hold up, let me get the ubiquitous back up. So if anybody tries to warp to the ubiquitous, whether they're warping to a bookmark or warping to a ship, they're going to land in the bubble, period. Which means they're going to meet the full might of all that drone power. With one full drone bunny, you're looking at over 3,000 DPS worth of drones, plus whatever PvP escorts you got. Those who have seen it, there is a video on YouTube of where a pair of legions, well-fit legions I might add, tried to aggress us, and then they found out exactly how bad of an idea that was. Here's the battle report. 4.1 billion ISK worth of ships tried to kill this fleet. They didn't get a single kill. And we only had six procurers and the porpoise. That's all we had.
Nice. Cool.
So,
is that it?
So we have very successful defense strategies. Again, the porpoises and the flycatchers are always assumed losses due to the nature of the ship. The goal is to protect the barges because they're going to be holding the ore, and I don't want people losing their ship if I can help it.
Yeah. Somebody's asking what time zone are you running these in? I guess you're gonna have new customers.
These fleets usually run around 3 a.m. server, so it's like the Aussie time block usually.
All right. And can you give me an idea of the profitability of the whole operation? Like what are you pulling in there?
Well, again, profitability is not the key. The key is to just be self-sufficient, to be able to replenish the fund with the ore that I've collected, and that's going to be a journey.
No, I mean for the miners. Sorry, for the miners that are mining in there.
Again, I will provide SRP for any lost barges, and then all the ore that they mine, they can contract to me. We're still hammering out the exact values for the ores again, but it's going to be as close to 100% sell value as I can get it.
Right. Okay. And somebody is putting in chat that the procurers pull in about 100 million an hour. Is that
exactly? Yeah. Each site, a ubiquitous mineral field has anywhere between 3 to 5 billion ISK worth of ore and minerals.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Golden, do you have questions?
Yeah, so there's a couple sort of big concerns about this. The first thing is just that whilst, I mean, that battle report's quite funny. That's great. The problem is this fleet comp is very counterable. I mean, anything sort of relatively tanky with smart bombs is just going to melt through the drones and then immediately be able to whelp everything else. So the first thing is that if this does get popular, it immediately becomes a target, and unfortunately quite an easy target. It's great that you've had some defense success so far, but that's mostly down to the fact that people didn't know how you were fit, and you're fit in quite an unorthodox manner. As soon as people are aware of how you're fit, it is very easy to counter. The second thing is that the concern about sort of profitability, not for the sake of profitability itself, but just for longevity. If you're running a buyback at or close to even Jita buy value, once you've got shipping costs and everything like that involved, and if you're doing SRP, well, you're not actually making any money. You're going to be losing money, because the only actual sort of net positive ISK you've got is whatever you personally were mining. Everything else, whilst it's great that you're providing a really convenient and helpful service to the people who are in your fleet, you're not making profit on that. And so anything you're paying out in SRP and shipping costs is out of your pocket. And so it's a neat idea, but I've got significant concerns about the longevity of it, especially because putting it in front of 400 people, and if it does get popular, costs of SRP and stuff start going up, and it's a question of how long until you run out of ISK, basically.
Like I said, and I'm welcome to anybody assisting me with trying to figure out how to make the fund sustainable. As to the counterability of the drone, smart bombing, like you said, that is true. That is exactly how you counter us. But I hope to expand on PvP assets. It was suggested in the Discord that maybe we always have something like a Marauder or something on grid as well to help deal with a battleship that's trying to come in and smart bomb our fleet away, or maybe just even a T2 Hyperion. Something with some weight to it. Also, with additional PvP escorts, you can avoid having the drone swarm right at the warp in, so you can choose whether, like, I can have everybody pull in their drones if we see a smart bomber before the drones get killed, and then we take care of the smart bomber and then relaunch drones and so on and so forth. There's no perfect strategy in Eve, but the idea is to be as you have to bring something significant to bear and to dislodge us. And what's the best you're going to get? Some drones, maybe a flycatcher, maybe a porpoise. You won't get the barges.
Well, they will. That's the problem. With some smart bombing for the drones and a few other methods as well, it will be pretty easy to melt through the drones and then tackle stuff and keep it.
Now, I don't have it ready right now, but we had an example of an OBS fleet. It was a Barguest OBS fleet that dropped on us with 4 interdictors. We saw the interdictors. We were able to engage all 4 interdictors with the drone swarm and kill them before they got the barges. We did lose 2 barges in that engagement, but they actually were caught in my bubble. They weren't even caught in Frat's bubble because they were just too close. They didn't venture out far enough away from the warp in point, which, that was just pilot error. We do try to play the moment as it is. We're not just instantly evacing. If they've got ways to keep the barges on grid, we try to clear those as best we can and get as many people away as possible.
That's it for me.
Rhoda?
Yeah, my only concern is how this stays sustainable. You talked a bit about it. You get 20 billion and you're buying at, say, Jita sell price, and as Golden said, you're bearing all the costs to get it back to Jita. I mean, how do you essentially avoid just running out of money eventually?
Well, I also run faction warfare a lot, so I've got a lot of LP saved up. I'm hoping to combine my LP gains with the instead of just buying blueprints and selling the blueprints, actually constructing things to try to turn a profit with the ore.
Okay, so there's a bit of a sort of a side operation going on here too.
Yeah, the ore is going to be. I'm not just going to take the ore and sell it and cut my losses. I'm going to try to take the ore, break it down, and get more value out of it by constructing things.
Okay.
And I mean, Ghosty, I know you're following your mentor from the past. Socrates, great name. But I mean, you could just just take I think everybody would understand if you just took a little cut for the longevity of the program, right? Is that just something you would categorically reject?
No, like again, 100% Jita's sell value is like the starting point. If it ends up being like 90% sell value, again, I want to give them as much value for the ore as possible. Most buyback programs are just giving you buy value, and then whoever bought it from you minus their cost to get it to market are getting all the profit.
Somebody is suggesting to do an ore buyback and then sell the minerals for profit. If you have, if you have good refining skills, you're going to find somebody that does. That could be one way.
Yeah, I've got a couple of mods in my team that have maxed out reprocessing skills and are really good industrialists that can help me out.
Crota, any more questions?
No, that's everything from me.
Okay, and Ghosty, you're looking for 20 billion just because that's going to keep you afloat for a certain period of time, right?
Yeah, my assumption is that any industrial startup period is going to take a second, but once it gets rolling, then the money get consistent. So I'm hoping to get funding for at least a month so that I can get that process started.
Okay, all right.
Also, to someone else's point about predation of the fleet, I am working on building relationships with the other groups in the region. I already have blue status with a group that operates out there regularly, Observatory Great Bear. I'd also be willing to hear from diplomats of the major powers like Fraternity, Goons, Horde. This is a public fleet. Everybody's allowed. I don't care where you are in the war. If you're in my fleet, you're all a bunch of miners singing Kumbaya. So if they want to help promote the fleet and even help maybe get some defenders there, so that their guys can come and make some money, these, it's safety in numbers. So the more people we have, not just in miners, but people who want to sit there and help donate their time in PvP ships, the more successful the operation is.
Okay, Ghosty, I'll make a start. So to me, I'm very happy to fund projects that are especially for new players, and this one is very well thought out. I like the operation you have. I like everything about it. If you don't take a cut, then basically what we as investors are doing here is we're just taking our money and just donating it to to new players in your name, or you're donating it to new players in our name. And by donating, it's not straight up 1-to-1 what I mean, but it's in the end what you're doing is you're not taking the cut that a typical person in that situation would take. It's basically charity, right? By not making a profit. So I'm very happy to fund this if you implement some sort of cut or strategy to make this sustainable, because otherwise I just don't see the big point. We could do this a lot simpler, right? So if you can show any sort of idea, and we can talk about this after, I'm happy to figure it out with you. But if we figure out some way of making this more sustainable than just say, here's 20 billion and you can go for a month, because then I don't think in a month of time I don't think we've accomplished anything. Then you've kept the operation going, but then you're just back at the start. So if you can do that, then I'm very happy to fund 5 billion. Let's go around the room first, and then Ghosty, you can decide what you want to do. Golden.
Yeah, that kind of hits the nail on the head for me. I'm all for funding things which are going to give particularly newer players the opportunity to do things which otherwise are particularly difficult areas of the game to join, especially if it means that they don't have to join some massive null group in order to do that. I don't think this is far enough along yet, both in terms of the defense strategy, which could end up, frustrating people who are joining if this does get popular enough to become a target. And also, it really would be ideal for it to be self-sustainable. Otherwise, as I said, it's effectively us sort of just giving UISC to pass along to new players in a sort of slightly convoluted way, and also some of that then going to losses for people attacking you in the process, when instead we could have just given that ISK straight to the new players more efficiently. So I like the idea. It needs to be thought through a little bit more, and maybe some sort of agreements held in order to get the defense stuff sorted and make it self-sustainable. For the moment, I'm going to stay out.
Crota?
Well, it's just, what is it? It's content generation approaching charity. So if you can't reach an agreement with Oz, I'll be in for 20.
Naturally. Okay. Ghosty, what do you think? Do you want to think about? Do you categorically reject it, or do you want to think about it?
The concern of sustainability is very valid, and the biggest concern, I don't want to be coming in here hat in hand every couple of months saying, guys, I ran out of money again. Can I get some more? It really does need to be sustainable. And after hearing your critiques, I'm wondering if maybe we shelve this until I can speak with a few more industrialists and try to hammer out the details of the buyback program a bit better. And then, like you said, go ahead and see if I can reach out to diplomats of the major powers who operate in the region to see if we can get some sort of understanding to where at least their OBS fleets aren't coming after me.
Yeah, I think.
Well, just to be clear, I'm willing to do this on your current pitch for 20.
Oh, if you're willing, I'll take your money.
All right.
But like I said, I hear the concerns of sustainability, and that is at the forefront of trying to make this a viable plan. Yes, it is a charity, but it needs to be a self-sustaining charity.
Yeah, making profit isn't a bad thing. Like, if the aim is to help and provide opportunities for new players, you can do that better and for longer by having it be self-sustainable. It's much better to kind of give people a 90% return indefinitely than to give people 100% return for a month. So,
Absolutely.
if concerned about sort of feeling bad about making profit off it, could do what Kudika was doing, which is just donate the excess to Plex for Good.
Yeah, so I totally agree. I think none of your miners, I think, expect a full Jita sell price, and I think everybody would understand if there was a little cut in there to make this idea sustainable. So yeah, you've got it anyway. As Crota said, he's going to fund it anyway, Ghosty. So you can go run with it. If you make it a little bit more sustainable, then you'll have some funding on top.
That sounds awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no worries. Good luck with it, and we can't wait to hear your updates. Cool. All right, man. It's good ideas today. Love it. What I love about hearing these ideas so much is that every single one of these ideas makes me want to play, watch, or take part in EVE Online, and that's exactly what I envisioned when I came up with this idea. So I always come out of here very, very motivated. I feel very very motivated to jump into EVE Online. All right. The last candidate of the day is a little bit of a special candidate. So I'm going to pull him into chat here, but I'm going to have to preface this with a little intro, because we're talking to is it Puce Moose?
You can call me Puce.
Puce Moose. Look at that. That is a very cool name, and also has an exclamation mark before it. So it's Puce Moose. So I have to say, before you present your idea, Puce Moose, you're a little bit of a special candidate because I invited you to the show and not the other way around. And the reason for that lies in episode 2 of the Oz Tank. If you guys didn't see episode 2, there was one investment that was a little bit controversial and that I didn't hear the end of, be it at FanFest or be it on Discord or be it on Reddit. And it was a little bit of fun post-show drama, and that's the faction warfare investment that Eden Trade is doing. So in episode 2, we had Eden Trade, one of our trillionaires. He pitched an idea himself, and that was his own faction warfare, let's call it motivation operation. So he creates goals for the Galente militia and puts a prize on different goals, and then he goes and says, go take that system, go, whelp 1 billion in fleets, whatever it is. And then he provides, SRP or he provides a reward on the militia completing his tasks. Now, let's say foolishly, and a little bit, maybe a little bit without thinking about it too much, I invested 5 billion in his idea. And essentially, that meant that I was supporting the Galente militia with 5 billion, which, I think it doesn't matter here and there, but I just, from a karma perspective, I don't want anyone out there to say that I'm supporting one side only. Now, I don't care what Eden Trade thinks, because he's already funding that thing was like 20 billion a month, right? But as for my own personal investment of 5 billion, I want to make it right. And so how do you make a 5 billion investment into Galente militia right? You find somebody that is in the CalMil militia, or or is in CalMil, right? That's I guess how you would say that. So there I was at FanFest, and one of the first people I meet in line are these 2 Finnish dudes that are very, very nice, are very funny, and they like to drink, all right? And so it was a fun weekend. I kept running into these 2 guys, and at some point I find out, wait a minute, these guys are in a CalMil Corp. And so I grabbed that opportunity and said, hey, would you guys be interested in some funding? And they said, being Finnish, they didn't want to come on a talk show, is my assumption. And so they sent their CEO, and that is Pius Moose. Is that correct and fair, Pius?
Yeah, so I'm not actually the CEO. I'm the CEO in absentia. Our current CEO is potentially, we don't know, he's gone. So I'm a director. And a little bit of a amendment to what you just said. The Finns were deployed to FanFest. They were actually pre-briefed on making contact with some tycoons. So they found and took Eden Trade to dinner. They weren't able to change his ways, so they also made contact with yourself. And it seems they've been pretty successful.
If that is true, Pius, if that is true, then I love the story even more. I would double my investment, but I can't, because if I double my investment, my karma is out of balance again. So you did bring up, even though you don't actually have to do anything for your investment, Pius, you actually brought a presentation, right?
I did. Well, I'm hoping you might be able to sway the other 2 investors as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. I have no part in that. So, wow, that is some impressive, very, very, very impressive graphics on your PowerPoint impression. So, Pius,
sorry for the looping there.
take it away. Take it away.
Cool. So first, I'd like to thank one of our ex-members now, Lindsay, for those graphics. Sorry about the screen flashing. That's PowerPoint. So I am Pius from Starline Enterprises. I am the director, and I'm the primary fleet commander for Starline Enterprises. And who are we? We are a pretty small CalMil Corp. We were primarily composed of newish players to PvP. Most of the players have now been doing PvP for 1 to 2 years. Personally, I've been playing this game since 2008. We run Friday fleets now on a Saturday, mostly. These are almost always frigate to T1 cruiser PvP because we are poor. We're building skill among our corp slowly, but we're usually S positive on these fleets. So we go out into the war zone, we roam around, we take some objectives, and we kill as many Galente as we can. We cannot afford bling, so all of our stuff is normally below 50 million ISK. So what do we want to do? A certain Eve tycoon who does a lot of trading in New Eden has decided to offer bounties on GalMil faction warfare objectives. only for Gal Mill and Min Mill, but we don't care about them. We do not like this. This is bad, so we want to resist that. As you can see, very, very biased. So we did deploy our Finns to FanFest. We couldn't change his mind, so we want to resist these objectives that he has posted. We don't want these to be accomplished. So what do we need for this task? We need ISK as much as anybody wants to give. I know you've committed 5 billion. 10 billion would be absolutely great. This is primarily for better ships. Our current SRP, as I said, is capped at 50 million simply because of corp income. We do provide free caracals to our members as well. We'd like to step that up a bit, potentially moving to Osprey navies, something like that. We'd also like some ISK for recruitment. At the moment, we have a core pad that runs. Nobody sees those. I'm not going to spam depots outside Jita on arsehole, but we can go out and we can kill more and we can advertise to the people that we kill, which is how we get most of them. Return on investment on this, as you can see, we have 80% positive income weeks over 5 weeks here because of our loot that we scoop. So, after that initial investment, we're green, right? I'm just taking the piss there.
Yeah.
Our actual ROI
Mathematically challenged is all right. Perfect.
Our actual ROI, there is no financial ROI. Everything we get given is eventually going to be destroyed. The ROI is purely the fun and fights. It's the upskilling of our members, and it's all of the destruction we bring to New Eden. But that's why we play the game, to have fun and destroy things. So that's just the short brief. Any questions?
Nice. I love it. Yeah, I mean, you already have my 5 billion. I was very, very positively surprised that you actually still created a PowerPoint presentation. So let's see. Let's see how you can maybe reel in some more investors. Golden, do you have any questions?
I don't think so. No.
Crota?
We exhausted the questions with the other faction warfare presentations.
Yeah, Starline, maybe can you I don't know if you mentioned it, but how many people are in your corp?
So we've got 13 people. We are pretty small. We average sort of 5 to 8 members per fleet. We're looking to grow. That is quite difficult. We're not a huge influence in the war zone at the moment, but we have ambition to change that. Yeah.
But wait, I mean, are you open for recruitment?
Absolutely. If anybody is looking to do sort of, at the moment, small gang faction warfare PvP, you can put an application into Starline Enterprises. I check it every day, and it's normally empty.
Guys, I mean, we'll give these guys money, of course, right? But there's 400 people watching. There'll be thousands watching on YouTube and on the podcast. So if you are interested in faction warfare and you want to fly with, I mean, I already know half your corp, right? I know the 2 Finns, and now I know you, and then your CEO is MIA. This guy came prepared. He sounds very nice. So and they're gonna have some starting capital now. So go and apply for Starline Enterprises if you want to try out some faction warfare. Do people that join your corp, do they have to commit fully to faction warfare, or can they do other things like on the side?
So we are fully in faction warfare as a corp. We're not individually enlisted, so you will be a war target. We do actually also have a sister corporation, which is composed of alts. So if you want to have mining alts and things, but still contribute logistically, that is there as well. Okay.
I can. Will you take me along on a Friday fleet?
Absolutely.
Very good.
More than welcome.
I just need to enlist then, right? With the character. That's right. Okay. Very, very cool. All right. I'll donate 5 billion. As I said, I can't donate more. I would donate more, but I can't to keep my karma balanced. Golden, anything else?
I'll do 5 bill as well.
Look at that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Crota?
Yeah, I'll do 5 bill, if only because we've learned what the honey trap is needed to reel us in.
Nice. Look at that. 15
Brilliant. Thank you very
billion.
much.
You know the requirement, Pius. The requirement is that you have to create some sort of a report, either blog about it, make a video, or give an update on one of the future episodes of my stream or the Oztank, and then tell us what you did with 15 billion ISK.
Sounds good. So I actually already write detailed breakdowns of every single fleet so people can learn from it. So we've got those. We've got editing and video making skills in the corp as well, so we can potentially produce some content for you guys.
Nice. And for everyone that is new to the Oz Discord, I'll link the Discord in chat here. There's a project update channel. So for this project and all of the other projects that you saw today and all of the projects that were in past episodes of the Oztank, you just go there and you scroll through and you can see what the newbie wormhole corp is up to, what the bounty hunting system is up to. Whether we will ever see that music contest from episode 1, I don't know. But I keep pinging the dude. He hasn't received his money yet, but I still want to see it. I'm almost tempted to take that project away and run it myself because I can't wait to see that happening. But if you want to read about that, just go to the Discord and read the project update channel in the Oztank section. Okay, Pius, any last words?
Join Kaldari, fight for the state.
Nice. Crota, anything?
Thanks very much, everyone.
No worries.
No, fine. No, it all sounds good. Great show, actually. 5 brilliant ideas.
Yeah, right? I mean, today's ideas were just knocked it out of the park. It was my favorite episode today. Golden.
Yeah, all fantastic ideas. I think this has probably been the best episode so far, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, we're gonna upload this to YouTube. We're gonna upload it to the podcast. So if you're not following on the podcast yet, you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts under the name Oz Report. There I've the weekly market update, interviews with CCP devs and other EVE players, and every once in a while also the Oztank. We also have a new segment called Pitch Your Playstyle, where I interview people that pitch me their favorite playstyle. So we had the first episode of that last week. It was Kiakti pitching the NPSI, and we're going to have more playstyles in the upcoming weeks. We're going to talk to low-sec pirates. We're going to talk to wormholers. We're going to talk to spies. So look for something called Pitch Your Playstyle, and it's all under the Oz Report podcast feed and also on youtube.com/Oz Eve. All right. Thank you to the investors. Thank you to all of the candidates that were in here today. And we're going to be back with the next episode of the Oztank in roughly a month from now. Watch our Discord announcements for the exact dates. And if you want to submit your own ideas, then go to the idea submission channel that will open up sometime next week for the next episode. And maybe next time it's going to be you on the Oztank. All right. Thank you all. Have a good day. We're going to go take a little bio break, 5 minutes, and then we're going to be back on here, this channel, for the after show. Thank you all. Bye-bye.